All right, to watch this video for Monday, May 23rd. Do I have that right? Yep, May 23rd. The SPY on Friday, let's look at that first, gapped up and ran and then ended up coming back and closing about in the middle of its range. And if we switch to the weekly chart, zoom in a little bit here, you can see decent range for the week, but closed barely above where it started the week, right? So back to the daily. Started off with a bang on Monday, looked like things were really good, and then by Thursday we're breaking the neckline of a Head and Shoulders, and then by Friday we're back up into the range. So, I've never been good at predicting what the market's going to do, other than to just assume that I can't predict what it's going to do, and I just trade it on a day-by-day basis. All right, so let's start with the watch list here. GNCA. Had a nice pop here. This is one that had that huge move back here in late March. It's been selling off ever since, but a nice bounce on, let's see, this would have been Tuesday, pulled back again, and then another bounce. So it's finding support here. I kind of like this over Friday's high, like 411-ish, but we don't know how it's going to open or how the market's going to open on Monday. So I don't live and die by that 411 number. I just know that I want to watch it for a potential long if other things aren't against me. SRPT, let's get this line out of the way. Nice little breakout of a range on Friday on decent volume. So I want to watch that for a potential continuation on Monday. URI had a nice volume spike. Let's see, this would have been Tuesday, and it hasn't broken Tuesday's high, but it's doing pretty well. If you switch to 15-minute candles, you can kind of picture a trend line here. Right? And so up over maybe 65.50, this one might just break higher on Monday. So I want to watch that one. That is URI. I got a long list, by the way, here. It happens a lot on the weekends. RRGB, Red Robin. I mentioned this on Reversal Watch when it looked like this, which makes me sound like a genius. It looked just like this when I said I'm watching this for a reversal, and it had a huge bounce, and I didn't trade it at all, so not quite the genius. But whenever a stock is beaten up like this, you had the gap down, sold off big, sold off the next day, and then, kind of had a quiet day. And then on Friday, just to share why I was watching this for a potential reversal, on Friday they start selling it again. This thing's way oversold. I loved it below this whole number and just skillfully missed it, but a nice bounce. I still want to watch this because maybe I am a little bit biased because I actually like Red Robin. It's a great restaurant. But it's pretty decimated, and then found some buyers on Friday. So maybe this thing continues on Monday. We'll watch it for an intraday setup. Now this is one of those kind of quiet ones that I think is worth having on a chart. I like to trade stuff that's had a lot of high relative volume in the past few days. All right, because those are the ones you can get nice predictable moves in. This one hasn't had high relative volume since the very beginning of the month, May 3rd, right? So there's really no, who knows if it breaks this kind of flag pattern next week or not. But, when you look at it on 60-minute candles, well, I think I like it better on 50. Nope, let's go to 60s. You had this nice move, and you just have lower highs, but it's starting to curl back up. So this really doesn't meet my parameters as far as, over the last few days, high relative volume, but still just keep this on your radar because I do think this may be found support here at the 20-day and might just rip higher one of these days, but doesn't look like a great day trader. Activision, speaking of high relative volume, you had the gap up, pulled back, another really nice move, and now you've got like 5 consecutive lower highs on the daily. It's in what I call the buy zone between the 8 and the 20-day moving average. A little bit of a bottoming tail maybe on Friday. So I want to watch this one for a potential move higher. Again, not a great setup. To me, that's one that won't really rip if it triggers, right? It'll just kind of grind, and I'm not a swing trader, so I look for stuff that can give me a nice measured move in a very short period of time, more like this CCXI. Okay, CCXI, huge move, came in, took out the highs of this huge move, hit the 200-day, and now you've got a couple red days and kind of a narrow range on Friday, and finding support at the 420 area. So I want to watch this one for a potential move. Anytime you can get 20 million shares and a move from 290 to almost 490, that's a huge percentage move, right? And then a few days later, 380 to 480, again, huge percentage move. You don't get these moves in Apple, right? So that's why I watch these. and now a couple days lower. That's a good candidate. Doesn't cost you anything to have it on a chart. GBSN, this is that weird one. I have to zoom in just to show you the setup. But it did trade over 10 million shares on Wednesday, and now you've got a couple days lower on declining volume. Very, very low float. So if this one can trade in a narrow range on Monday and then break its early high, you might kind of get a semblance of this move, right? So it's worth having on a chart, even though when you go to the daily chart, you can't, when you pan out a little bit, you can't even see it. And that's because of a reverse split. So that's why everything looks so consolidated here. But you know what? When GBSN does move, it moves pretty well. And I do like a big move with 2 days lower. So it's worth having on a chart. ORIG gapped up on earnings on Friday, only to close near its lows. But I'm putting this on bounce watch. Bounce meaning like on an intraday it sold off. But it's still up nicely above where it closed on Thursday. This one might just turn higher. A lot of times we see this. We see a gap up. Sellers get a hold of it on an intraday basis, and then the very next day it rips. So, as I always say, doesn't cost me anything to have it on a chart. PRGN, pull that line off of there. All right, so PRGN had a huge move back here, huge move here, a nice volume spike on Thursday, and then a lower volume pullback on Friday. This is another setup that could give us a nice short squeeze on Monday with the proper intraday setup. So as day traders, I've got to have stocks on. This is what I live for. I look for stocks that have made, from 106 to 198 in one day, right? Is almost a double in one day. So, and then you get a pullback, you got to put that back on a chart. So that's PRGN. KOOL, you'll notice a theme, right? A nice volume spike, low float stock, quiet inside day. Sometimes you get that third day push. So I want to watch that one. Remember, guys, I never just take these, right? They have to meet intraday parameters, so that's pretty important to understand. CMCM, I'm just looking for a snapback bounce. This thing's really beaten up. A few sessions ago, it was almost 15 bucks. On Friday, flushed below. It got all the way down to 950, closing at 1020. So I want to watch that one for a potential bounce. CLRB, remember, I'm a day trader, guys. I don't hold anything overnight, so I just look for stuff that can make me money. Well, in this case, on Monday, right? And back to cash. So CLRB. This one, huge move. Again, another low floater, went from $1.06 to almost $4. I want to put this on watch really for the entire next week. I generally don't think these don't give great long setups generally the very next day. But by Tuesday or Wednesday, we could get a really nice setup in this one. A couple more. MGT, another crazy one. 15-minute candles here. You've got a couple days where it had a high at 321 and then on Friday 319. So we'll keep our eyes on this for maybe a push back through that 320 area. Matter of fact, I'll just borrow this line that I had on there and put it kind of at that 2-day high. So if it gets over that, might give like a little mini squeeze. Not in love with that one, but doesn't cost me anything to have it on a chart, right? And then finally, PTCT had this big spike back here from 606 to 1015. That's a monster move. It's done nothing since, and then a little volume spike on Friday. So maybe a follow-through day, and maybe we can one of these days get a retest of this $10. High was 814, so we'll keep an eye. I like it over 814, but sometimes, I'm looking for an 814 break. Sometimes on Monday, we'll get an open at 790. It'll go down to 780, and then we'll buy it back through as it goes back through the open at 790. This is, of course, extremely hypothetical, and then maybe you get the red to green, and then the high or break of Friday's high. So just know that I don't live and die by, hey, I'm only going to take this if it breaks 814. A lot of times we get a nice intraday setup where 814 becomes a secondary catalyst after our trigger on the example I just gave you. So there's a lot of ways we watch these. And that's a lot to watch, and we'll also add some gappers in the morning. So enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to you on Monday.